Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Looking Back With, and our next guest tonight is Ian Hudson. Ian, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Pleasure.
As we said, a few people already tuned in already, a few questions already to go through, which is absolutely amazing. And it just shows you kind of the strengths, what we're going for on this channel now. We're trying to push as much as we can and getting ourselves out there, as well as getting the North East shown as much as we can as well. I'm going to hand you over to Stephen, who's going to go through some early days of your career before getting on to kind of the Dallas, spending the Blythe Gateshead times as well.
Yeah, Ian, first one really, before making it in at Whitley Bay, what made you fall in love with the game?
What, from a kid or in terms of adults, or
from a kid, really?
do you know, I was just obsessed from an early age, really. I've got two older brothers. One of them's 4 years older than us, and he was kicking around with his mates, and I remember just latching on, and I think I must have been about 4 or something. We got a field outside our house, and I just latched onto him and his mates and played. And I'm a massive believer in the theory, if you play with like better players and older people when you're younger, it kind of brings you on. Because I didn't play with anyone my own age until I hit school, and then when I did do that, obviously it seemed a lot easier. So I've been obsessed with football from an early age, and then anyone who's played with me or anything like that, I quite regular that I get called busy and stuff. So I've always been in love with the game, and obviously that holds us in good stead now with the role that I'm doing now. But hopefully it'll stay as well, because I think once that love goes, then you're in trouble. So hopefully it sticks with me.
Absolutely. When you were coming into your career early doors, was there kind of an opportunity for you to possibly turn pro at any time?
The talks. I mean, I came into Northern League football when I was 17, playing for Sunderland Nissan. That was me first club, and then predominantly in the Northern League, my main club was Shildon. And at the time, I was having a really good spell, and there was talks of one league club that kept coming back to watch me, which obviously at the time was really exciting for myself, but just didn't happen. I got a bad knee injury, which that's the old thing, isn't it? I got a knee injury, so I didn't make it. I got a knee injury, so I was out for about 18 months, and then obviously rehab and everything like that, and then that's when I signed for I think Benfield after that. Benfield, I think I went back to Shildon, then Benfield, then Whitley Bay. So it was a injury that wasn't too bad, but the operation wasn't successful at first, so it set me back quite a bit. But then looking back at it now, it was probably the best thing that happened to me, to be fair.
Yeah. Just touching a little bit on your early days in the Northern League, what were those days like, and was there any like battles you had coming through into the Northern League kind of thing in games and stuff?
They were so good. I remember when I went to watch Sunderland Nissan play, I can't remember who they were playing, and I was just leaving college, and Andy Lowe, who's at Hartlepool now, he was my college coach, and he recommended me to Sunderland Nissan. So they told me to go along and watch a game, and I remember watching it, and it was just like, wow. And I went with my dad, and my dad, obviously I'm not the most physical, not the biggest at the time, and my dad was like, do you think you'll be able to cope with this? And I just remember like looking at it thinking, a lot of question marks, like maybe not, but I just absolutely loved it. I went to Nissan, and some of the characters that were there were just unbelievable, like Kaffer, the keeper, John Cullen, like Gav Cogden. The first time I remember watching when I signed, I think we played Washington in a game, and we went behind 2-0, and I think Gav got the ball both times from kickoff and just scored straight away. And I was just like, wow, if that's the standard now, I might not be good enough for this level. So obviously looking back now, Gav's the best player I've seen. So I was kind of probably not in the right idea that that's going to be the standard throughout, but absolutely loved it. I had a lot of battles with Chris Bell, who is my best friend now, works at Gateshead. Belly was an unbelievable player through college. He used to get the better of me all the time, and then I signed for Sunderland RC, which was Kennick Ripe at the time. We had some really good characters and players then. I played against Belly at Seaham, and I seen him on the team sheet, and I thought, oh no, he's gonna pull me pants down again. But it was a winter's day, and it was a bit icy on the ground, and it doesn't really suit Belly that. So I think I got the upper hand that day. But the characters in the Northern League back then, it was such a strong league because not many people wanted to travel too far. So the Blythes and the Gatesheads, that obviously they didn't really have the pick of the bunch then. I remember there was a lot a lot of lads would turn that move down to Blythe and Whitby and people like that because they just didn't want to do the travelling, and there was a lot of money getting paid in the Northern League. So lads were earning more money playing in the Northern League than what they would do going higher. So the standard, like Adam Johnson's, Gavin Cogden's, people like that, like they should have played league football, like
Definitely.
high league football. Like Gav, I would honestly, I said this a million times, how he didn't play for Sunderland when he's a local boy from the area. He's been at the academy. Like, it's just beyond me. In that at that time, like Paul Robinson, that Whitley side, man, some of the players just unbelievable to have played in the Northern League and spent a lot of their careers there. It just shows what a strong league it was.
It's always been quite competitive, hasn't it, the Northern League? Like, it's good.
Very.
Moving on to your time at Blythe, I think your first sign for them was in 2013. What was the experience like and the excitement for playing for Blythe Spartans at the time?
I totally loved Blythe when I first went, all the time really, but especially when I first went, we were massive underdogs. The club had been through a bit of a rocky time. They'd struggled, they'd been relegated, they were struggling in the league they were in. Colin Myers went there, and I know Colin, so Colin asked me to go when I was at Whitley Bay, and it hadn't worked out at Whitley Bay, to be honest. So going to Blythe, I had the bit between my teeth. I really wanted to prove that I could play at that level. And the team that we had when I first went was just such a close-knit group. Eventually, when I first went, it was a bit of I wouldn't say a mess, but there was a lot of players sort of in and out, and there was no stability there. And Colin Myers and Tom Wade, really, they've done an unbelievable job when you look back. Obviously, Tom brought Nipper in, people like that, and Nipper's just, I talk about Gav being the best player I've seen. Like, Nipper's right alongside him, like just the stuff. We used to go to games, and him and Robbie Deal, sometimes I said this yesterday actually, we used to turn up and we used to get on the pitch, and I just used to look at the opposition and think, we've got no chance of winning here. And we probably not touch much of the ball, but then Robbie would get it and he'd chop 14 people and then pull one back, and then Nipper would take a few people on, and you could tell teams were just like, look at us thinking, well, you've just got two really good players who are carrying you here, and it was the case. And then we got stronger as it went on, and obviously we had a really, really strong side the second time I went back, but the first time I went there, it was tough, because I remember the first game I went, the fans can be really hard to win over there, and they certainly weren't having me when I first went, and you get obviously the abuse and stuff, and I wasn't really used to it, because playing in the Northern League, I don't know, that there wasn't really an abusive fan base. Everyone was just like, everything was really family sort of orientated. So I was never ever used to getting shouted abuse at or get them off or anything like that. Then you go to Blythe, and obviously I was on the bench the first couple of games, and you hear some of the boys getting it, and I just think, oh wow, I hope that doesn't happen to me. And then sure enough, when I've kicked a few in the stands the first couple of games, it does. But it made us more determined, and it was so hard for teams to come and play us at Blythe, like especially in the winter. We played against some really good sides like Files and Chorley's back then, with top sides. And we used to get results against them, FC United Manchester, and it was purely because they just turned up in the stadium. It's a brilliant old-fashioned, like, proper football ground.
Yes.
For these lads who have dropped down to levels and stuff in the winter, and it's freezing, and they're having to warm up on the back where it's all muddy and stuff. A lot of the time, you just had them beat before you'd even kick the ball. And I loved that underdog mentality that we had. And I played every game under Tom Wade, and even when I left, he kind of said to me that if you stay, like, you'll play every game under me, because I was a good character in the change room, and he identified that. And I felt bad leaving Tom, but I knew it was a really good opportunity for me to go to Darton. But my time at Blythe, like, as I see, after the injury and stuff like that, that was kind of the first time I thought, yeah, I'm back playing now, and I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like I'm playing well, and I'm proving people wrong that I maybe couldn't play at the level, and also proving people right and myself right as well. So I really, really enjoyed it.
What was it like playing at a packed Craft Park, especially when it was rocking as well? Right, that was some atmosphere, was it?
Yeah, it was class. I remember the FC United Manchester games. Them were my favourite. We played them at home. I think we might have drew 1-1, or we got beat 1-0. And you know where the dugouts are at Blythe? The stand opposite where everyone can stand. FC United had their supporters had that full place
Really?
packed, and they brought flares, and literally you could you can feel it. I could like feel the atmosphere like was bouncing, and I swear you look at the stands, I'm thinking that's moving, that stand, they're jumping around that much. It was just unbelievable. And as I say, I've not been used to that. Obviously, playing in the Northern League, you don't really get them type of fans. So that was probably the biggest plus for me in playing in that, is like, I'm experiencing what it's like to play in these atmospheres. And the Blythe fans are unbelievable when they get behind the team, like them FA Cup runs and stuff. And there's obviously like a group of them that go away to all the grounds, and they've always got your back, and you can hear them at home more so than anywhere else. And they're just such a good group once they get behind the team and the positive. I know obviously I would never down talk them, but when it can be negative, it is negative, and it's hard for players to play in. But when the positive and the behind the team, it's such a good place to be.
Yeah, I've kind of followed Blythe a little bit through me loving non-league football. It's a special club, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And like, I don't know how many clubs there are like it anymore. Everyone seems to be it's like a trend thing now, isn't it? You get obviously all your changing rooms done up with the sections in, and the car seats and that in the dugouts and stuff like that. And it's like it's a proper football place with football people. And obviously my experiences of the managers that I had there were unbelievable. The players that I played with, just like, it's ridiculous. Some of them I had no right to play with. They were levels above what I was. But I really enjoyed it. And I became a bit of a leader in the change room quite early on when I was at Blythe, and I thrived on that side of things. And as I say, some of the games that we had, the Darlow games in the FA Cup, when we played them at our place and their place, the Stockport games when Stockport won the league, just such good atmospheres. And Blythe deserves to be like higher up in that league and pushing to get in conference, because Blythe would be a really good conference side, and I think they would do well, because teams would not want to go that far north. They don't like coming to Gateshead, so going that extra 30 minutes, they would really struggle. So they're obviously a couple of tough years, but I think Fence is a really good appointment for them. He seems to fit, and they've got really good players now, so there's no reason why they can't sort of stabilise the next couple of months and then look to kick on. And you never know, with the 7 places up for playoffs, they might nick a spot. Then once you're in the playoffs, it's a lottery, isn't it?
Well, it is. Just kind of touching on you leaving to join Darlington. What were your thoughts for signing for Darlington? Was there excitement about that signing for the club?
Yeah, to be honest, I was absolutely buzzing. Darlington was like it was a massive club at the time. I don't know if I can see this, but I think I can, because I don't think I'll get anyone in trouble now. But when I was at Blythe, we played them in the FA Cup, and we played them at their place. And then I got a couple of calls off my friends saying, Martin Gray really likes you, who were at Darlow. So I was obviously buzzing with that. And then we played them in our place, and we won 3-0. And then I got a call off Martin saying, like, listen, like, really want you to sign. You've done well the other night, like, built the club up. And even when we played them at their place, I was like, this is like a proper football. This is like league football. I know it sounds crazy, but the place was packed. You could see they were like a professional outfit. So I was really buzzing for it. And Martin rang me and he said, listen, come and meet me and Harry at a pub. So I don't even know if I should be saying this, but I think I'm all right. So I drove along to the pub to meet them. They hadn't done anything yet. They hadn't spoke to Blythe or anything. And then when I got there was a contract. And obviously Martin's a really persuasive guy, and I wanted to sign anyways. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to sign, but I'm always one of them. I want to do things right. And obviously Martin had the contract right in front of me, and he was like, there's the contract. This is what you're obviously going to earn and stuff like that. But I wanted to sign, so I signed the contract. And then I was thinking, God, how's this work now? And I think this was on like a Sunday night. And then they didn't put the 7 days in to Blythe until the Monday. So I'd already signed for Darlow, but on the Monday, the 7 days went in. So I turned up for Blythe for training on the Tuesday. And Tom Waits pulled me in, and he had a conversation with me saying, like, no matter what left back comes in this club, you're always going to play because I really like you. And then so I was like, oh God, like, I get on so well with Tom. Like, Tom's a great guy. And I get on well with Colin, and I'm playing every week. And then I started having doubts, but I'm like, but I've already signed the contract, and I can't tell them that I've signed the contract because then that'll get everyone in trouble. So then went to training Thursday. See him like I was like, they were like, you need to make a decision, and then I played for Blythe on the Saturday. We played away at, I think it might have been Ashton, and I'm sure we won. I think we won. And then obviously after the game, all the boys on the bus were like, "Oh, Darlington's put 7 days in for you," and I was like, "Oh yeah, like they've mentioned it and stuff." Haven't already signed like a week earlier. But I got to Darlington and I had like a lot of close friends there already. I had like Gary Brown, who I'd played with before, and Darla was honestly, the changing room was the best club ever. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all to anyone. And the boys, if ever them listen, I don't know if they will, but I loved every single one of them, and that was the strength in the group. But what we were a group of players that probably weren't deemed good enough to play for Spennymoor. So Spennymoor had an unbelievable side. The players they had, wow, what a side! Like, they're ridiculous. They were the best team in the Northern League. They won it year after year. So when Martin got Darlow together, he got a group of players that maybe Spenny hadn't went for, because obviously Spenny can only have 16, 20 players. So there was a group of players that were maybe it's the next tier down from, or deemed as the next tier down. And I think Martin identified that group of players would be so hungry to be successful and really buy into what he wanted, because we had so much to prove. So the group of players that we had, there was a lot of us that weren't the most talented, but we would run through brick walls for the club. Martin was an unbelievable manager, getting everyone together. Brownie was the captain, unbelievable. We had like some of the players what we had, but who weren't, when we first went, they wouldn't have been regarded as like the best players in the area. Right. After 6 months or whatever, like Tom Portis, who we signed from Whitby, I don't think he played every week for Whitby. Tom was one of the best midfielders I've ever played with. He was unbelievable. Gary Brown, who maybe didn't work out at other clubs previously, he was a good player, but he was an outstanding player at Darlington. He was the best centre-half around. He was a leader. Leon Scott, who'd been obviously at Whitby and stuff like that, was a real leader within the change rooms, and he drove the team with his work rate. We had Amma up front. I generally believe if Amma had not got injured at the time that he did, he would have went on to play league football and even higher. He was winning us games by himself. And then we had like Alan White, Chris Hunter, Pete Jameson, who at that time wasn't established as like an unbelievable keeper. So as I say, we had like a real good, it was a good time for us all to play there, because we were all so hungry to do well. And we went from being, well, certainly myself was an average player, but I was a decent player when I was at Darlow, because my work rate just went through the roof, because I wanted to work so hard for the club. The fans, you don't want to let the fans down. The club means everything to them. And we had like, obviously, Tomo. Tomo was just ridiculous footballer. We had Graham Armstrong up front, Alan White centre-half, like league centre-half. So good. And then once we got promoted, we brought like Twinney in and Mark Beck and people like that. And like Philly Turnbull was just like a Rolls Royce, just different class. So the club was just getting bigger and bigger all the time and bringing better players in. But certainly the success came from having a change room of people that were maybe not deemed good enough to play for Spennymoor, which was no, you know what I mean? It's not a problem, because Spenny had an unbelievable side. They had like, I think they had Peaks playing, they had Gav Cogden playing, Leon Ryan, people like that who'd all been at Durham, and Louis Dodds, who'd won leagues at Durham. So they were just getting success from Durham and putting it into Spennymoor. And obviously Jason done a really good job of managing that. But as I say, the group that we had at Darlow, like Dowson as well, probably weren't deemed to sign for Spenny at that time, but they certainly proved that they were good enough and better by the end of it.
Brilliant, isn't it? It's such a story, that night, isn't it?
It was class.
Brilliant. Like, I'll hand you over to Rainey now, Ian.
Yeah, no probs.
I was still laughing at them players. I always remember when the FC Manchester came to play Durham, and obviously the stand's not the biggest, and they must have set 3 or 4 at the same time. It was that almost escaped the ground. It was like a fire escape. Had to get out. There's that much smoke. It was unbelievable. Like,
it was class. Did you ever go down Bury when they played at Bury's ground before their stadium? That was so good as well. They had a really good side. We went down there. We got beat 3-0. I think we touched the ball about 3 times for Blythe. They had such a good side, but that place was bouncing as well. And obviously in that league, you go to Bury's ground and stuff. It was class. A really good club. Really good.
Brilliant. Lots watching already straight away, hitting double figures, which is fantastic. Harry, even Rainey, Buster, and everyone else watching. got a question from Lee, which comes next, but a bit later for kind of the Gateshead off game yesterday. And just being mentioned there, Gary Brown. I can't explain how much I love this man. Just don't tell him that you scored the best goal at Cross Park. That's my trophy. Top man and a friend for life. Yeah, we've had Gary on before. Cracking lad. Yeah, cracking lad.
He's the best ever. Like, we still have a group chat now with all the Darlow boys, and he was our captain, and he's still the captain of the group now. Like, he won't let the group die. He keeps it alive. He keeps putting things in there. And I known Gary before Darlow, when obviously he was at Shildon, and we travelled to a game together once. We both weren't playing. We travelled away to watch Shildon play. I think it was down Liverpool, so we car shared and had a good drive. And I got to know him really, really well that day and see a different side of him, because everyone at that time had just seen the lunatic who 2-foots people in the neck. But I had a really deep conversation. Obviously, like, Gary lost his dad at an early age, and his dad was a good footballer, and he spoke about how he wanted to make his dad proud. And I remember trying to talk to him, because he kept getting sent off, and I thought this is a good opportunity to try and tell him just to maybe calm down. And I remember seeing, like, we were talking about his dad, and I said, like, what would your dad think if you were getting sent off for, like, some of the tackles you're doing? And he said, oh, I would love it. And I just thought, you know what, if that's the case, keep doing it, keep throwing the tackles in. So yeah, he's the best guy ever.
Oh, that's class. I mean, your time at Darlow, like you say, they came down, but they were still almost like a Football League side. And I think the fans they wanted that promotion back up in the Football League as quick as they can. The club put everything in structure. I know they do the booster budget every season, which really helps the club massively.
Yeah.
They raise a lot of money from that. But could you tell us a player going into that group that was their aim to get back to Football League as quick as they could?
A player?
Yeah. Could you feel that around the club at the time, kind of from the board and the
I think, yeah, once we first went in, and it was just, everyone was just Darlow. We were all local lads, and we just wanted to get Darlow. The next, I remember Chrissy Hunter, we used to talk about, if we get this club promoted, like, we'll be in history, like, we'll be remembered forever as the lads who got them from the lower leagues to getting a bit higher. And then once we got to Conference North, you could tell it was a bit like, There was a certain number of that group that certainly Martin did trust to be able to play in the higher league and do well and get promoted, but there was a few of us who he probably didn't, and he thought our time had come to an end, and he wanted to replace us with better quality, which of course, if you want to grow, you have to do, and I've got no problems with that. And Philly Turmo was probably the one who came in, and you kind of felt, yeah, this is like an upper class of player now. Like, Philly Turnbull, such a good player, and we were very direct at Darlow. We used to hit Graham Armstrong a lot, and then Twinney came in, and Twinney wanted to get on the ball. And I remember we played Gateshead in a pre-season friendly, and Twinney was kept coming in to get it, and we had a few injuries that night as well, but we didn't play great. And I remember Martin coming in the change room after kind of saying, we ain't changing what we're doing just because we've brought, and he didn't mention Twinney's name, but just because we brought a certain type of player in, we aren't changing, we're still direct. But as a testament to how good Twinney is, Darlington did change how they played. They weren't as direct, because when you've got a player like Twinney who just wants to dictate and come in and get on the ball as much as he does, then you have to play to them strengths. And they did, and they had like Josh Gillies, they had Twinney, Mark Beck was up front, and they had the boy he's captain at Harrogate, or he was captain at Harrogate, little centre midfielder. I can't remember what he's called.
Took me a now.
Oh, that'll kill us, that. But he was like, that was the caliber of player what they were starting to bring in now, and you could just tell they were kicking on. And obviously then Martin left, and since Martin's left, it hasn't really been the same. Alan's doing a really good job this year. He's got a really good side. Alan's a top man, like a really good manager. So I think if the fans give him time, he will get it right, and he is the right man to push the club forward. But yeah, there was certainly a change when we got promoted to Conference North, and players wanted to come in, and you thought, yeah, they're here to get promoted with this club or to get noticed to get a league move. And Tom Portis was getting a lot of interest as well at the time. I think he suffered with injuries after that, but I don't think the club would let him go, if I remember rightly, because I think it was a bad time of the season. But he could have played league football easy, no problem at all. He had everything, physicality. He was intelligent on the pitch, not off the pitch, like he's certainly not. But on the pitch, he had real intelligence, technically, energy. He was just he was brilliant. Like we had, as I say, we had such a good group then.
No, it was really good watching it from the outside and kind of the rise at that time. I mean, like you say, for playoffs and promotions, and then you signed for Spenny in 2015 as well. And it's kind of going from one amazing squad to another amazing squad. I mean, that must have been a good step at the time for yourself.
Yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult for me at Spenny, to be honest, for a number of reasons. I spoke to Bernard and John on Sunday about this. I nearly signed for Salford when I left Darlow. So it was really close to happening, and they were speaking to me, and I was keen to do it. And then the travelling was going to kill us a bit, but I thought obviously it's a good time to move to them. They've got the documentary and that I might get famous and
definitely.
stuff. So that was kind of the move that I wanted to happen, and it didn't happen. I don't think from their end. I think Darlow might asked for something, and Salford didn't really want to pay any money for me, which I totally get. Like I'm not that good. So I went to Spenny, and I'd played with Jason, who's the manager. I'd played with him at Hetton Lions, and we were like we were friends. And they had an unbelievable team. Like I was going from Darlow, and I remember going to my first Spenny game, and in the warm-up I kept giving the ball away, and Carl Griffiths was like, "You've come from a higher league," because we were above them at that time. He was like, "You shouldn't be nervous and stuff," and I was just thinking, yeah, but like, yous are players that have been the best players in the area for years now, and I don't know if I'm good enough. I've went from being in such a comfortable dressing room with lads who all pushing in the same direction, will encourage you, whatever, to maybe now at Spenny Moor, where if you give the ball away, they might be on you a little bit, and I had to deal with that, and it's if I look back at it now, we got 2 promotions when I was there. Some of the friends that I had from that time are like unbelievable. Me playing side of things, it was I wouldn't say a disaster. The first season was good. I played pretty much all the games, played in the playoff final, really good. Then in the summer, obviously that's when Curtis and Ramshaw and Chandler signed, and I kind of, because I was working at Keats at the time, so I was getting into them to come to Spenny. And again, the same at Darlow. That was like, right now the club are going to kick on. And I'm never one for excuses. Like if someone's better than me, I'll say, yeah, they deserve to play. And when Stephen Capper was at Spennymoor, I'll sit on the bench for 50 games and on the bounce for Stephen Capper, because he's an unbelievable player. He's miles better than me. Like he gives you so much in a game that I can't give. I don't even know if there's any attributes that I'm better than him at, but he was so, I'll happily say, yeah, listen, he's at the club, but he was coming to an end and I kind of edged in front of him. So for me, that was like, well, that was a really big thing, and he was unbelievable. He was helping me even when I was playing instead of him. But I think he was kind of happy because he was looking to come to the end of his career. But then Spenny brought players in. I felt the second season that weren't as good as me. And it was obvious in the games that they weren't as good as me. And I felt it was, I don't know why I didn't play, to be honest. I felt like I should have played, and that's probably the first time in my career I'll say that, where I feel I really deserved to play and I wasn't playing. And then I got back in the team. I think I played about 20 games that season, and I ended up coming out not long before the playoffs. Was it? Yeah, I think I came out not long before the playoffs, and then I went back in and I played a game, and I played really well. And I remember Alan White, who was the number 3 at the time. Obviously, Jason was manager. Then you had Tommy Miller, who was assistant, and Alan White. I remember Alan White telling me after the game, he was like, that was one of your best performances, that you were so good. Like, I thought you were probably man of the match. So I'm thinking, right, I'm back in now. I'm gonna stay in and I'm going to play in the playoffs. Then we played Warrington on a Tuesday, and we brought a young lad in on loan from, might have been Grimsby or somewhere, called Isaac. And he played on the Tuesday, and I wasn't in the squad. So I travelled to Warrington, and I wasn't in the squad. And now I'm a coach. I listen, I see everything, and obviously Jason and Tommy weren't. I wasn't their cup of tea as a player, which is absolutely fine. It could have been probably communicated to me a little bit better. And there was during that season, I was all done to sign for South Shields.
Right.
I was going to meet Pickers to sign for South Shields, and then Jason, I think Spenny had played Whitby on the Tuesday, but I didn't even go because I was going to South Shields. And then Jason rang me the next morning when I was supposed to be going to South Shields and said, you can't go, we want you here. So obviously that deal got stopped, and I stayed at Spenny. And then on the Saturday for the Spenny, I wasn't even in the squad. So I was like, you've stopped me going there, and then I'm not in the squad. So there was a few things that happened, and it just wasn't a great time for me, to be honest. And like Jason, I love him to bits. As I say, I was his friend with him, and we probably that clouded our relationship a little bit being there, because looking back now, I didn't handle myself great at times. Like as I see on the Tuesday, I was supposed to sign with South Shields. Then the Saturday I was in the squad. I just picked me bag up and I went home. And I should never do that. Like, regardless of what's happened, I should never ever pick me back up and just go home. I should have stayed and supported the boys, but my head was just like, wow, you've stopped me going to South Shields. Now I'm not in the squad. But as a footballer, like, I should have just stayed and I should have handled myself in a better way. And then, as I say, we ended up getting promoted through the playoffs that year. We played in the final, and it was tough. And this is probably my biggest strength now as a coach, because I've been in them situations. So now when lads aren't getting in, I see it devastates them when they're not in the squad. They're like devastated, and I totally get it. But I try and get it through them. Like, you can't let it affect you. You just have to make it work harder, because if you sulk and if you're huffy, it just goes against you. And I did that at Spenny. I sulked, and I would probably speak to boys and say, oh, it's crap that I'm not playing, and why am I not playing, and looking for different people to go and speak to. And that's just been a bit of it's not great for the change room, and I should never have done that. So if I had my time again, I would have handled that different. But having said that, like, probably the Spenny move, as many positives as it did, in terms of the promotions and the lads that I got to meet. And we had 2 Marbella trips, because the chairman at Spenny move was unbelievable, and he pays for you to go to Marbella. And then with two of the best times of my life, to be fair. They're unbelievable. So I'll always look back at it as, because of them positives, but footballing wise, it was 2 years out of the game, really, to be honest.
You mentioned the Marbella. We had Bobby Moore on a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of talked about the funniest moment that he's had there. And he was dying to kind of mention the trips, but he thought, I'm never going to go into them. I think that was kind of his response. Yeah,
they were lively trips. Really, really good. So you get so well looked after, you wouldn't believe. So yeah, lads have just got free rein to go off and do what they want. It's class.
Brilliant. But like you say, in 2017, a bit of a smile back on your face as well. I mean, like I say, when I work, I always work quite late, and on the night time, I always sit and look for all the latest news, kind of what's happening. And I remember when you came back to Blythe Spartans, and it was kind of the picture when you were signing, and even just from the picture and the interview that you did straight away, you were just buzzing to be back, kind of what you called your club at that time. And obviously signing back as a player and also helping as a coach, that must have been great to get back to Blythe Spartans at that point.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, I can't tell you how happy I was to go back, because when I left Spenny, I was obviously still at Gateshead. I was working for Gateshead, and Neil Aspin had asked me to go full time. And I was thinking, do I still want to play? I think I must have been 29. And I was thinking, I don't want to retire yet. Like, I'm still not that old. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even 30. I might have just turned 30. I can't remember. But I love Neil Aspin. I work really well with him. So a little bit of it was me like, do I want to do this? And then I kind of agreed to go to West Auckland. Me and Nathan Fisher. So Fisher was at Spennymoor. One of my closest friends. And he'd left Spenny and he'd signed for West Auckland. So we were like, right, we're going to go to West Auckland. And I'd spoke to West, and it was all pretty much agreed for me to go there. And it was going back to the Northern League. And I felt like it's going to look like I've went to Spenny. It hasn't worked out. So then I've dropped out in the Northern League. And then Neil Hooks, who's at Blythe, he messaged me, and he just said, it was just a general message. And I just said, I think I'm signing for West Auckland. And he said, do you not fancy coming back to Blythe? And I was like, well, if it's an option, but I knew Lids was there. And then, so I didn't think it would have been an option. And he said, yeah, listen, like we want to sort of S&C sports scientist, but we also want you to come along as a player as well. So I went along to meet Alan and Neil at Starbucks, and I signed the contract there and then, and I wasn't even bothered about how much money was on it or anything like that. I just was buzzing to get back. So Hooksy was unbelievable for me then to sign me back, because Blythe definitely didn't need a left back. Lids is, again, same as Kappa. I'll happily sit on the bench for Lids. Lids is an unbelievable player. But I was just so happy to go back, and it couldn't have went any better for me. I played more games than I thought I was going to play, because Lids picked up an injury, and when I got in, I'd done well, and Alan was really sort of loyal to the fact that if you're doing well, you stay in, and everyone knew that Lids was better than me, and I knew Lids was better than me, but because we were winning and because I was playing well, Alan kept me in, and because he'd done that, he got me utmost respect. And every time I played for him, I gave him absolutely everything, and I've still got a really good relationship with Alan now. And we brought some top players in, like we had Kieran Green on loan, and I was training with Gateshead at the time, because Steve Watson was manager then, and he used to let me join in Gateshead all the time. So I was training for Gateshead pretty much as like a full-time footballer, really, and then playing for Blythe. So I was playing really well, and Jamal Fifield, who was at Gates at the time. I remember having a conversation with him, and he said, like, you're playing so well for Blythe because you're training like you're a full-time footballer, and it was. So that time for me was class. And I retired. Retired, like if I can retire. I finished playing when I was 33 at Blythe, and I was so happy to stop playing because Blythe had been so good. The team we had, the football we played, the games that I was involved in. We talk about the Stockport games. I was happy to see. I think I've proved a few people wrong who thought I maybe couldn't went back and play at that level. And as I see, met some unbelievable people and played with some great. That team we had at Blythe, looking back now, was ridiculous. Really, when we had Kieran Green. Green, he's obviously playing League 2 now with Grimsby. He'll go on and play Championship. I've got no doubt about that. Nipper up front was just winning games. Robbie Dale was still unbelievable. Dale Hobson was having a really good season. We had Jarrett Budds, Pete Jameson in goal. We had Alex Nicholson. We had an unbelievable side. And I left just before the playoffs to do the Gateshead thing full time. And I think they got beat off Altrincham in penalties. And I think if they'd have beat Auckland, I think they might have went on and won the playoffs that year. And it just goes to show the little margins what you have. But
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I love going back to Blythe. The people there and everything were just so welcoming. Like, it was a little bit like I thought, oh, people are going to look at this and think, why is he signing for us? Like, he's not really played much for Spenny, but it wasn't. It was the opposite. Everyone was just so welcoming when I went back, and I was getting messages off the fans saying, "Oh, we're buzzing to have you back." And I couldn't have been happy to go back, and it just worked out so well for me. Looking back.
No, really good. I mean, Stephen's going to come and touch on some like time around that Blythe, like you say, it was so successful at that time, which is really good, and get on to Gateshead as well. So just back there, Stephen there.
Talk about the promotion season with Gateshead just last season. It's finished on 101 points. What was that like for you personally?
It was unbelievable, and it still is. Like, because we got promoted, it looks like, and the day we got promoted and everything like that was so good. Like, but we've got such a tight knit group. Honestly, I'm not just seeing it every day going into Gateshead. Is like, sometimes you have to pinch yourself. You're like, oh, I'm working with this group. I'm learning off Mike Williamson. I've got this group of players who are kind of buying into everything what we're trying to do. We're such a tight knit group. So to have that last year and to be winning every week, obviously when you win, no one really gets down, so everyone's just coming in buzzing all the time because you're winning every week. Everything kind of went in our favour in terms of we had a good mix. I talked about my previous Darlow team when we had players who had a point to prove, and we had that at Gateshead last year. And I don't know what the odds were of us winning the league at the start of the season, but in-house when we had our team together, we were playing pre-season games, we were training, and we had conversations with the boys, and we were seeing like the boys, because I would never say it, but the boys were saying we've got a real chance here to win this league. Like, I can't see there's going to be many teams better than us. And we've done a thing. What the gaffer wanted to do was the gaffer and Chris Bell. So Chris Bell, he's the physio, but he's like the psychologist, and like he's the glue. So he's the glue for everyone. Belly and the gaffer and Belly wanted to do this thing where we put all our fixtures on a board. We got all the boys to sit round, and we said, what points do you think we're going to get from each game? So the boys were like, we went through, it took us about half an hour, all the boys sitting down, we were like, right, do you think we'll win this game? They were like, yeah, win that game, win that game. It's away, it's tough, we'll take a draw. And at the end of it, they ended us having, I think it was like 86 points they had predicted. So I was like, you've got us winning the league there. You've probably edged on the positive side of things. We need to be like realistic. And so when I was looking at it, I thought, we need to be realistic of what we want. And I said, because I don't like looking at the league, I don't like looking at anything like that. So I said to Mike and Billy, I said, take that board away from me. I don't want to see it again until the end of the season. And I didn't look at it. And I remember Mike pulled it out when we were having a little bit of I don't know if it was a sticky patch. We might have got beat one and then drew one, and the pressure was getting the people. And Mike pulled the board out, and I was like, I stood with me fingers in my ears because I didn't want to hear the points or anything. And we almost got to the points what the boys had already predicted. And it was just like, wow, like, how well have we done? Like, from the start of the season, no one would give us anything. We would have done well if we got the playoffs, to winning the league the way we did, playing the football that we did, and just the day-to-day journey, which still continues now. Honestly, it's a privilege. it's such a good energy around the place with the boys and the staff at the stadium. Like previously when I've been there, if I'm totally honest, the staff in the stadium have been separate from what the football club is.
Yeah.
Because obviously we rent the stadium from the council. But these last 3 or 4 years, like Marie and Banksy and Steve-O, who are the staff at the stadium, they all buy into what we're doing as a football team. And we come in every morning and it feels like they're part of the team, and they'll feel like they're part of the team as well, because they are. And Mike sort of, he's created that full thing. He's an unbelievable guy. I tell people all the time, like, he's been life-changing for me off the pitch, and the stuff that I learn on the pitch from him, and his standards that he sets, and just as he is as a family man, and in the way he conducts himself off the pitch, he's such a credit. And last season, the strength that he showed, obviously, I think he spoke about on the radio and stuff, but he lost his dad last year, and we were going to Leamington. And he was on his dad's deathbed, and he was leaving his dad's deathbed to come to Leamington, play the game, and then go back. And then he turned up for the Kidderminster game, and we played Kidderminster away. There was a couple of games I'd done by myself where Clarkey came and helped out. Clarkey's like a club legend, like everyone loves him, so he came along and helped out. But the boys were they were like unbelievable. We were saying to them, like, listen, Mike's going through a tough time. The only thing that we can do is try and impact it. Like, if we get a win, it might bring that little bit on the boys. The boys are all right. Not that it would have changed anything of how he felt because he was losing his dad, but it's just the boys are all right. I don't need to think about them. And to be fair, the boys were so good. They grafted and they've done everything. And there was never a session where it's like the manager's away here, the standards have dropped. It was different from that, and it's just testament to the group we've got and the man that Mike is, that we managed to get through that period, and we managed to do what we did. Like, unbelievable. It's such that day when we Charlie, I'll remember that day forever. And then the last game of the season against Hereford, when we could just celebrate and everyone's family was there, my kids were there, my parents were there. It was just like, it was class. Everything was just relaxed, and it was just really good. And I hope I experience it again, because I always say some people go through a lifetime not winning leagues, but I've been really lucky that I had 2 at Darlington, 2 at Spennymoor, and now I've had 1 at Gateshead as well. So I hope that I'm a little bit of luck for the clubs that I'm at, and hopefully I can have a few more of them days.
I hope so.
I'm trying to take a couple of games in, and I have done this season as well. It's been brilliant. You know, I've been really touched on it a few times. You know, it's been brilliant to watch.
Thank you.
Just touching on, I think you've beaten North Shields 3-2 in the Northumberland Cup at St James's Park.
I wasn't there then. I wasn't there.
Right.
No, I'd left. That was the season I'd retired. I had 2 games in the Senior Cup final. One was did I have 3? No, I had 2. So we played Newcastle once when I was at Blythe, and I played against Greg Ollie. Greg Ollie was the right winger for Newcastle. Left back for Blythe. There's a clip where he shows me quite often where he's got the ball, he's got his back to me, and we're getting beat 3-0 at the time, and I've just went in to absolutely level him. Like, I've just thought, I think I've lost my head.
Class.
And he's just spun and just knocked it through my legs and ran round me, and he pulled me pants down that night. He was ridiculous. Lucky I get to work with him still now. And then the other time was when I was at Whitley Bay. We played Ashton, and we got beat then as well. So I have not had a great time. I would have liked to have been involved. I can see I'm involved in the squad because I was involved in the season, so I'll take the medal.
Just touching on a little bit, I think did you go to Gates at some point as a strength coach? Joining Ben Clark's coaching setup. How did that actually come about then?
So I went in as S&C coach. It was actually Malcolm Crosby was manager, and Martin Gray. So I played for Darlow at the time, and when I was at uni, I wanted to set up my own business of because I felt that there was only people who were at pro clubs used to get proper S&C coaching. So my idea was to kind of create my own company where semi-pro footballers and people could come and do proper S&C. So that was my idea. So I asked Martin if I could do a couple of sessions with the Darlow boys, and he was like, yeah, no problem. So I'd done them, and Martin was like, oh, that's really good. And then he spoke to Malcolm Crosby, who was a Gateshead. He said, "I'll just get him in and do it." And I remember going on my first day, and he had like Curtis and Chandler and stuff like that. And I was like, I knew them a little bit, but not really well. And I was so nervous. I was thinking, oh God, I just hope they like it. And honestly, like James Curtis, it just was unbelievable. And I thought if I can win James round, I've got a chance. And Curtis was just unbelievable. And Ben Clark, like, I've got so much to thank Ben for where I am now. Like, I wouldn't be where I am without him. And even going back to then, like the Chand, Ramshaw, Marwood, all them were just unbelievable with me. So Crosser liked that. I think he liked me sessions, but he liked that I got on with the boys. So he kept me on. And I was just going in casual. Like Malcolm Crosby's class, like one of the best guys you'll ever meet. He was brilliant. And then Neil Aspin came in. And Neil Aspin was big on fitness. So Mickey Cummins, who was in at the time, had spoke to Neil and told him what I'd done. So Neil was happy to keep me on. So I stayed with Neil Aspin. And as I say, I've got a really good relationship with Neil. I still speak to him regular now. And then Neil left and he went to Port Vale. And then Steve Watson came in, and at the time I don't think Steve was like massive on having a strength and conditioning coach in or anything. I think he kind of was happy to do things his way. But Richard Bennett, who was chairman at the time, I think, and Mickey Cummins again had a good word for me as well. I think they just said like this, and the boys like him. He's a good link to have between the boys and the management, even if you don't want him to do the S&C stuff. But Steve me and Steve have got a really good relationship now. He's actually like a really close friend of mine. But at the time, he probably didn't want me to hang around. So I stayed on with Steve. And then towards the end, obviously, we had Joe Calla and that in. So having an experience like that kind of brought us all closer together. And I think Steve he got the job offer from York. He was kind of managing in impossible circumstances at Gateshead. So he took the York job. Ben took over. And me and Ben Ben and Steve and Mickey would play two-touch every single day in the sports hall. So we grew really close as like a coaching team. And when Ben took over, he basically just said, like, "Oh, will you give us a hand?" And I was just like, yeah, like, being on it, you know what I mean? Like, Ben Clark, what an unbelievable guy. So to be fair to Ben as well, like I've said this a million times and I've told him, I was with him in the office when he got given the job, and his phone was going with like ex-pros that he played with, like, "I'll be your assistant," lads who were like qualified up the hills, who were like had played at unbelievable levels, like wanting to be his assistant. And he said to me, Ben said to me that day, he said, "Listen, like, I truly believe that you're better off having friends working with you, and you'll make it work rather than getting people in from like other clubs who you might not know." And I live by that from when Ben said that to me, because it's so true. If you have your friends with you in the bad times, and they're there to support you, and they'll never try and manipulate any situations, because football can be like that at times. Like, everyone's trying to get higher. So sometimes you see assistant managers who have been brought in because they've got the coaching qualifications. As soon as it starts going wrong for the manager, they're kind of liking the fact that that's happening, because they think, well, I might get the job. Do you know what I mean?
They do, don't they? Yeah,
it does happen, and you can't get away from that. But because I'm so close with Ben, I was like, he knew that I would never ever do that, and I would always just have his back. And he taught me a really good lesson that day. And as I say, I've got a lot of things to be thankful for Ben, and giving me that role was obviously life-changing for me looking back now. And then I got close to Mike through that as well, because we brought Mike in as coach. And obviously Mike was still playing, but I was learning things off him all the time, and we got really close during that period. And then at the end of that year, obviously all that happened with Joe Calla, and the club nearly going, like, some of the stories I could tell you with Joe Calla being there, man, it was crazy. And then when he left and they saved the club, Ben didn't want to be he doesn't want to be a manager. He said, "I was just doing it to help the club." So I was thinking, well, I'm just going to go back and play then, because they'll probably bring a manager in, and I'm just going to go back and play, whoever it takes, like. So then me and Mike still talking all the time, and Mike wanted the job when Ben said he didn't want it. So Mike was like, "Listen, I still want you to be my assistant." So again, like Mike, the players he played with, he could have had anyone as assistant, and people who'd played in the Premier League and who would have brought more publicity to the club, and who people would have sort of came to Gateshead just to see these people. And I won't name any names, but I know some people who wanted to be his assistant. And it was a bit like, wow. And he wanted me to do that instead of these people. And again, like, can't thank him enough for doing that. And it's been such a good journey that we're on together, and we're still learning learning every single day, and we absolutely love it. And I think that shows in the way we play. We're kind of relentless in everything we do. We work hard away from the football ground. Once we've left the football ground, I come home and I'm watching games and I'm learning different things and trying to implement it to the boys. And it's certainly like it's a journey that I've came on from being an S&C coach and now being an assistant manager and everything that comes with that in terms of being so close to the boys. And now you're assistant manager, so do you have to be different, or do you be yourself, or do you have to speak them in a different way? Do you distance yourself? All them things, and I've just learned so much from it, and it's like such a good opportunity for us to come from that side into what I am now. It's really helped us like grow as a person, and it's a strength of mine now, really.
Yeah, just touch a little bit further on your relationship with Mike Williamson. What's that like? How you obviously enjoy working alongside Mike with the gated lads and that?
Yeah, I work with my best mates. I generally do. Like Belly obviously has been my best mate for years, since I was 17, 18. Every club I've went to, I've took him with us. So and Mike's I'm as close to Mike as I am with Chris now, and as close to anyone. So we have really good crack within the office and stuff. And as I see, he's been life changing for me as a person, like the way he conducts himself. As a father himself, and I learned a lot from that, having 2 kids. He's got 5 kids. He's been on an unbelievable journey himself throughout his life. And we generally just, I think we've got a really good relationship with each other, in terms of he gives us such a freedom at the club. So if I go away and I think we should try this, Mike, or I think we should try that, you're like, yeah, well, let's do it. If I see a player that I like, he'll lean on me. He's like, yeah, do you think we should sign him? I'm like, yeah, we'll bring him in. So then we do it. And there's not many managers would do that. And I really feel that he believes in me, which is the biggest thing, because that gives me the confidence to be able to want to go out and do things, and I want to repay him, and I want to work as hard as I possibly can to get the club as high as what we possibly can, because I think the club's got a massive ceiling. I think it's got really good potential, and everyone at the football club now, the directors and everything, are brilliant. So going back to my relationship with Mike, it's as perfect as it could be. We never really fall out. I don't think we fell out once, other than yesterday. Actually, I think I was complaining a little bit on the sideline. I think he might have called me a bitch actually at one point. I said bitching or something, I can't remember. But nah, like he's the best guy. He's a life changing person. You come across people in life, don't you, where you think they changed my life, them, and he's definitely one of them. And I bet you there's about 50 people who will see the same thing about him. And obviously pepper his head about when he played at Newcastle, ask him stories about Barton and Colaccini and stuff like that, and he's always happy to entertain us on that front as well. So yeah, it works really well.
Obviously I know Mike's kind of had a role as like a player manager sort of thing. When he's been playing, have you kind of felt like you've took on more the management side of things while Mike's been playing, or how does that work?
Yeah, 100%. Like, as I see, he gives me like free rein to make me feel that I can do that. So if he was really restricting on me, him playing would be a massive issue, because I'll feel like, I don't know whether I can say this, I don't know whether I can do this, because he gives me that he trusts me on the sideline. So him putting that trust in me, like obviously I have to sort of step forward to that. And we both want to play the game the same way. So everything what we talk about in football is very similar. We spend a lot of time talking about the structure, how we want to play in possession, what we want to do out of possession, and it's very rare that we disagree. I mean, we do disagree, but it's not massive disagreements. It's maybe little things, but our philosophies are very the same, and we're really aware that we're growing on the journey together. So there's never any problems with each other. If I think we should do a certain thing, he'll listen to me and he's like, all right, okay, let's try it, then go the other way, and we're all positive and we all push. So it's never a case of where we're playing on the pitch and I'm on the sideline and I'm like, we have to do this, we have to change this, we have to change this. We stick to our process, what we've talked about. We never come away from what we do. And because of that, do you know what I mean? I'm not saying anything different from what he'd be thinking. So it works really well like that.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, really good.
I'll hand you back over to Rainey for the last part here.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, just before we get into the quick fire questions, really, I think it's just to kind of talk about kind of where he's a Broadgate now. I know myself and my son Park, we came to a couple of pre-season games the season before last. when he's beat the under-23s, Newcastle and Hartlepool, and he's absolutely like just play them off the park. They couldn't get next year. The fitness levels you were closing down and Parker just said, Dad, every time Newcastle's away, can we come and watch them play? And I think it was just the club itself, because after the game there was a man of the match ball for Chedwin Scott. Some woman won it, and we found Parker on Twitter, and he ended up going to the gate and picked the ball up, and he's still got in his bedroom now, and he still talks about it every time. It's just like amazing what he's done. And I think even when we put out on Twitter and Facebook that you're coming on, the amount of people that kind of praise what yourself done for Gateshead, and I think it's amazing, really. I know we had Owen Bailey on, who came on and talked about his time at Newcastle, when we're doing kind of the Newcastle content stuff, but we touched on Gateshead and himself. He says he's just so happy to get up in the morning to go and training for yourself and Williamson, and that must be amazing hearing players say that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and that's the environment that we wanted to create. I remember when we first took over, we went to Starbucks in the Metro, outside the Metro Centre, and we had a blank bit of paper. And obviously, Mike doesn't really know any local players, so I was writing down player after player after player after player who we could try and get. We didn't have anyone, so going down this list, and we're ringing them. We didn't have any players signed on, so the lads who I was ringing were just like, "Well, you've got no one signed on, so who am I going to play with?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, but I need some. We need to get a base in so we can get players in." And the first player to sign for us was Alex Nicholson, and what a signing he was! Like probably one of the best signings we ever made. Like unbelievable. And then like I can see this now. I won't mention names, but we signed about four or five players that season that we've never seen play before and never really heard of, because we couldn't get players in. No one wanted to come and play for us. And do you know what? If I was a player, I would have the same reservations, because we didn't have any players. What had happened previously, lads had not been getting paid off Joe Callis, so that starts circulating around. So players are like, they don't really want to be the ones to be the test dummies, you know what I mean, and come in. So we were really struggling to sign players, and then because Mike's such a good manager, we got a good team together, but Mike got the best out of them. So we ended up doing well. And by the end of it, we had some really good players. We had a really, really good side, and that I don't know how many people could have done that. You know, going from having no players at all to then go, and we got in the playoffs that year as well. Our first season, and it was just a bit like, I think we're on something. We've got like a successful recipe within the club, from the directors, the supporters. The supporters are unbelievable. They really buy into what we're doing. Like, obviously last season it was easy for them to buy into because we're winning every week. But they came back when the club, it's their club, they saved the club. I see it all the time. They're the heart, they're the soul of the club. It's their club, they are the club. We're just trying to get it to a point where they can be proud of, and they feel like they had their club back. And I said when we first got the job, I wanted to take it back to when you had Chandler and Curtis, Marwood, Ramshaw, Oster, Turnbull, all them, because that was a local team that really knew what it meant. And I said to Mike, if we can get that, then we'll be fine. We'll be successful, because Northeast lads, they know what it's like to play for local clubs, and they'll give you everything. So we've built it up in a way where the first season we maybe didn't play the football that we wanted to, because we were just testing, bringing new players in all the time and trying to get a structured team. And then obviously the second season that got curtailed through COVID. So there wasn't any playoffs or anything that year. So last year was our full season, and it was the first time where we felt that we recruited the players to really play like how we want to play, which is testament to the players we had in. But the lads who came in on that first season, like they deserve so much credit, because they signed on for a club that they just had no idea what they were signing on for, and they've done unbelievable. Like, we had such a good season. We got the FA Cup against Oldham. I think that was the first round proper. And you look back, like 6 months earlier, we were sitting in Starbucks. We didn't have a player, and we were just writing names on a list to then playing Oldham. It was like, wow, we've come on so quick. And then even now, like where we are now, the supporters they're just unbelievable. We've got a core group that are so good. We've got there's like a new generation of supporters coming around, and I haven't really spoke about this before, but it's the new social media type of supporters, where they'll jump on things quickly, and like obviously we got I think we drew last week. We got beat off Halifax, and you can start to see a few of the young boys like, oh, get rid of the management, and they got a few messages on my Instagram account like, you should be playing this player, you should be playing that player. And I think that is the younger generation coming through, because they see it like people on Twitter and stuff now have power. So if you can get like, you know, like the higher up, sometimes the fans will start a manager getting sacked, like, oh, such and such out, and it hashtags, and then all of a sudden the people who aren't on Twitter might not want that, but because all the younger generation are on Twitter and social media, it's like a snowball effect, and they start to push. So what and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's a good thing, because we're getting the younger generation through as well. And that was like, for me, when I was getting a message off interview, I thought, actually 2 years ago we probably wouldn't have been getting them messages because we didn't have them type of supporters, but now because we're doing well, the support's grown as well. And as I say, we want to take the club as high as we possibly can, and I generally think like we've got the best people at the club to do that. And it's took us a little bit to find our feet in this league. We've had a transition sort of period. We're struggling with injuries, no excuses though, and we're really confident that it'll turn, and we'll do well, and we'll kick on.
Yeah, I mean, that was my next question just before the quick fire. I mean, quick question earlier from Lee about yesterday's game. What was your kind of thoughts going into this season? I know you've lost obviously the two main strikers going into this season, but obviously picking up a great win yesterday. Lee's asking what was your thoughts on yesterday, and kind of what's your thoughts yourself and Mike pushing on this season. What's the aim?
We did honestly. We didn't have an aim. Mike was quite adamant in that this year. We're just going to take every day as it comes, and that's what we do. And where we'll end up. But obviously we're going into a higher league. If I'm totally honest, I've been a bit like, the standards went up since we were there last time. It's went up quite a lot.
Big size, isn't it? Big club names. The
distance from the National League North to the conference is bigger than what it was sort of previously. I would say that's just my opinion. Obviously the Wrexhams and the Notts Counties and people like that, but we're performing really well. We won't come away from how we want to play. We believe that's the best way for the players that we have to play that way. It's how we like watching football, and I've said this a few times before. When you're a coach or you're a manager, you can only be comfortable watching the football that you like watching. So if you're going along every single time we get the ball, if we're going into a centre forward and it's heading back, I would hate that, and Mike would hate that. So then why we're doing it? Do you know what I mean? If we're on the sideline and we're not enjoying what we're watching, and we won't be enjoying training because we're obviously training to go from A to B as quickly as we can, we wouldn't enjoy it. So the way we play is the full enjoyment in what we're doing. And I know I've heard Dyche talk about it before, where he spoke about like why he doesn't play, and he said the same, like he's not comfortable with playing from the back. Yeah. And there is no right or wrong way to play football. Like, we didn't invent the game. No, do you know what I mean? So whatever way you want to play is totally fine. It's 100% up to you. I just like watching that type of football. That's what I enjoy studying. That's what I enjoy training. That's what I enjoy coaching. And ultimately, that is in my head. That is our ideal team that we want to watch, is to play like we play, and we're just going to get better at playing like that. So, to go back to yesterday's game, we showed elements of when we do that, how good we can be. The goal obviously comes from, we do so much work on one touch. Every once a week we'll do one touch games where you only allow one touch, more than once a week to be fair, and then we get a goal from it. So it's really good to see that transfer over. But we've definitely got so much room for improvement. The result was good yesterday. The boys showed the character in terms of they'll dig in. Like I've spoke about it already, but the boys we've got are just unbelievable. What a group of lads we've got. Like, it reminds us of the Darlow group. Such an unbelievable group of boys. But we can be better, and because we've got such a group of boys, that'll always be the case. Mike talks about like a zoom in, zoom out concept, where when we're zoomed in, it's all about football, and we demand everyone has to be better. I have to be better. Mike has to be better. Louis, Rob, Belly all have to be better, and all the players have to be better. But then when we're zoomed out, it's not about football. It's about our family life, and who we are is enough. And that's a real good concept from Mike, because the boys really buy into it. So we've already, on the bus yesterday, talked about what we're going to do to get better. And I know the boys will be chomping at the bit because they want us to get better as well. So, as I say, I generally, like, this might bite me, but I generally feel like we'll get stronger and stronger as the season goes on, and we'll be good. We'll be in a good position come the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great goal. I've watched it about 4 or 5 times. Like you say, the Twitter, the people, like the new fans, it's been shared that many times now. It's got to be on Saturday this weekend, I think. I've seen it a few times. Like,
I hope so. It's really good. It was a good goal in it, and it comes from bravery from the boys and wanting to play, and obviously you have your technicians and your ESCs who've got that vision. Blackley's a willing runner. Wardy will run all day for you. He took it really well. So it was pleasing to get a goal. I think we scored a better one. We got a penalty from a better one at Spennymoor in pre-season. So it was similar, but for me it was more pleasing. But that one yesterday was really good as well.
And Tony just mentioned there, one of our great listeners loves watching the show. He's going to catch up more. We're speaking very well. He's just put on there, success for a Gateshead fan. Being Tony, he's just staying in the league and building from there, which is taking a bit of pressure off you there, Ian.
Yeah, and Tony will do that because Tony's an unbelievable guy. He's Gateshead through and through. And when you talk about Gateshead's supporters group and fan base, he always pops in my head. Even when I was S&C coach, if ever you'd see Gateshead on telly or anything like that, for some reason I always just think of Tony. And he's been so supportive. Obviously the chairman and the board we've got are unbelievable. They're really supportive in what we do, and we're all on the journey together, and we're all trying to deliver a really good football club for the community. And Tony's the heart of that community. Obviously he's got his business in Gateshead. He's a Gateshead lad, and he's a really, really good person, and we love having him back involved in the club as well.
Excellent. One of my favourite parts now is the quick fire questions. I know it catches a few players off. We've not been prepared for them, but yeah, 5 questions that we always go through at the end of the shows for everyone that's on. Number 1, the best manager that you've worked under?
As a player or as a coach?
As a player, yeah.
A player. Martin Gray and Alan Armstrong.
The best teammate that you've played with?
Nipper or Gav Cogden. Can't decide.
You mentioned Gav, like he was supposed to be on last week, but he double booked with a charity event at Spennymoor, so he'll be hopefully back on in a few weeks.
He's not honestly. Yeah. He's not even. Don't know. He should have been playing Prem, and obviously he's one of my closest mates, and I tell him all the time he's only got himself to blame, but he should have played at Premier League level, I think.
Definitely. And number 3, best opposition player that you've played against?
There was a guy called Barnes who played for Fylde. He was unbelievable, but I will say Anthony Peacock.
Yeah. Number 4, best football and moment?
Darlow promotion was brilliant, but then promotion with Gateshead topped that. So yeah, promotion with Gateshead. Yeah,
and finally finishing with number 5, a funniest football moment. Could be changing rooms, holidays, whatever you dare mention.
Funniest changing room. I don't even think I could. I don't even think I'd see. There's been so many, especially when you've shared a change room with the likes of Chandler and Ramshaw and people like that, like the stuff and the pranks that they used to get up to, and even when I played for Hetton Lions, like some of the characters, like Jason Ainsley, I talk about him. Some of the stuff they used to do. One of the funniest times ever. So the boys that he had these trainers, and I think they were quite new, and the boys had like cut the tongues off the trainers, but they stuck them back in the trainer. So I don't know how it's happened, but he's put the trainer on and he's not realised that the tongues have been cut. And you know when you pull your tongues up when you've put your trainer on? So he went to like pull his tongue up and his tongue's like come out of his trainer and he's like flew back. But so many with Jason, like the stuff the boys used to cut the front off his cap and like stitch it back on so it was flopping about. And some of the bus journeys with the Hetton boys and stuff were like Ben Ryan and Craig Shields. Unbelievable days then, yeah. Too many.
No, fantastic. Last couple of comments there. Tony, I know Tony mentioned, I think there's 2 Tony Carters in the northeast. So
is there?
Tony, yeah, and he always gets mixed because he says the other one's always getting called out on Twitter and Facebook. He says that's not him.
Oh, really?
That's the other one.
You have to drop us a message. Let us know who it is.
And Tony's asking as well, the best centre forward or winger that you played against. I know you mentioned Barnes there, so I know exactly who you mentioned with that Barnes lad. Yeah, really good player.
He's unbelievable. Him. Played against Glenn Taylor when he was at Ashton. He's an absolute monster. Glenn's unbelievable. The only reason I don't put him in the best I've played with is because I left Spenny when he really kicked on, so I didn't play him when he was at his absolute best. But playing against him at Ashley, he was very good. But that Barnes is the best winger I've played against. He was frightening. And Anthony Peacock, when I was at Newcastle as a youngster, he was at Middlesbrough, and he's such a special footballer. Like they don't make them like him. He's a once in a lifetime player. How he didn't go on to play better things, I've got no idea. But what a special footballer he is.
Definitely. And finally, just a one from it just shows, like you say, we spread the word that much. The Blythe supporters fan base actually got in contact on Twitter yesterday. Just wanted to ask you as well, just saying, what's your memory of League Town away? As many for us, that was the true highlight of the FA Cup run at that point.
League Town away, I probably didn't even play in it. I think I probably went to Durham before that. I probably didn't even play in it. The other thing I always remember with Blythe fans, you used to put like a peg on someone, and by the end of the game, whoever had the peg on them was like, and they used to like stick it on the linesman and stuff. You know, when the linesman was pass, used to stick the peg on the linesman and that. I don't even think I played in that League Town game. I think I'd signed for Darlow. I signed in the pub anyways a few weeks beforehand, so I don't think I played in that League Town game. Pretty sure I didn't.
I'm gonna have to Google that one. Like, say, I don't know what happened in it, but it must have been a funny game. Like that certain game as well. I was like, well, what's happened in that game? I'll have to have a look at that one actually.
I don't know if that's the one where Twinney scored Steve Turnbull scored a free kick or something, and that Steve Turnbull came in the night I left, so I think it might have been a different. I don't think I was there.
Different one. But no, Ian, thank you so much for coming. It's been an absolute laugh from the first minute. Like some great stories as well.
I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, really appreciate it coming on. And I think, like you say, it's going to be available all the time on YouTube. So if you just haven't watched, I know there's a few still tuning now. It's absolutely amazing. We've still got a lot of people watching live now, so we really appreciate your support. We couldn't be doing this without likes of Ian coming on, sharing his time, sharing all these stories, and yourself all watching as well. We've now got our new Facebook group as well. Get across there. We're going to put as much Northern League, Non-League, National League, everything we can. All the North East clubs are going to put as much as we can in there and try and push as much as we can, because we really want to get this North East and put on there. Just show how good we are up here, really, isn't it, Stephen?
Absolutely. It's a massive hotbed. We've said that every show we've done so far. And again, Ian, thank you so much for your time. I would really do appreciate it.
No, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, Thursday night, back to a little bit of Premier League football. Fulham, the preview game. If it goes ahead, I know there's been some real strikes, so I know that other teams got their games postponed, but I'm sure they'll make the Newcastle fans travel down by car and ease out. Sunday, one of your former teammates as well, Ian, Nathan Buddle's coming on.
Oh, is he?
Lad.
Yeah, he's one of the best buds. He's classy. He'll be buzzing. Yeah, he really likes Keith Curl, who's went to Hartlepool. So ask him about him.
And Mark's put in there, some boy fuzz lad. That's off Mark there.
He's one of my local friends. Yeah, spilling that. They call us Fuzz. Oscar. He's a great lad. His dad's a Gateshead fan as well. He's an unbelievable boy as well. Oscar, got a lot of time for him.
Excellent. But no, again, everyone, thanks for watching, and Ian and Stephen, thank you for joining us tonight as well.
No, thank you. Cheers, lads. See you.
Cheers.